Okay, so now that we've seen loops in action a little bit, and we've gotten a short introduction to them, and we kind of know what they're about, let's have another practical example with them. And so in this case, let's look at the for loop. And now what we're going to do with the for loop is we're going to create a shape using characters. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a for loop, and through this loop we're just going to print to the screen every time, and then we're going to create a shape using this. So let's just see this in action to kind of understand what we're going to do and what we're going to see. So the first thing that we should do is we should create a variable called number, and we're just going to give this a number, and so this is going to be 10, or actually let's call it the length. And what we're going to do is we're going to have our length be the length of the shape that we're gonna draw. And yeah, so let's just stick with this right now. So what we've done is we've created a variable called length, and we've assigned it the value 10. And so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a for loop, and we're gonna loop over the length. So we're gonna loop 10 times. And each time we're going to print something to the screen, and what we're going to do is we're going to print a shape in the end. So let's just start with printing a simple triangle. So let's start writing a for loop. And so the way we start that is we use the keyword for. So we write for, and we see it gets colored. So we have the keyword for here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use our temporary variable. So we'll just call it pause, short for position. So for pause in. And now we're going to use the range function, since we want to create numbers between 0 and up to, but not including 10. So this just gives us 10 iterations. That's what we're going to use the range function for. We're not actually going to, well, we are kind of going to use these numbers also to print out to the screen, but it's also going to give us the functionality of looping 10 times. So what we want to do is we want to create a range between 1 and 10, and this number indicates the line that we're going to be in, and it also indicates how many characters we're going to print to the screen to create our triangle. So we'll see this again in action in a second, and then it'll make a bit more sense too, but let's just use the range function right now. So we type in the keyword range, and we open and close the brackets since it's a function. And now we actually want to start at 1, so we want to start off printing 1 character to the screen. So our start is going to be 1. And our stop is going to be the length. And to finalize our for loop, we're going to put our colon here. And so now we've created our for loop, which has the temporary variable pause, which goes through the range 1 up to length. Let's actually go up to length plus 1. So if you remember that the range function goes up to, but not including the stopping value. So what we want is we want to go 10 times. So we're going to start at 1, and we want to do that 10 times, so we need to go up to, but not including 11. And that's going to give us 10 iterations, but that means we're also going to eventually print 10 characters to the screen. So yeah, that's why we're just going to add the plus 1 here to make sure that our final number is going to be 10 rather than 9, because the stopping value here in the range is that we go up to, but not including. So right now we're going to go up to, but not including length plus 1. Which is 10 plus 1, which is 11. So we're going to go starting at 1 up to, but not including 11. So that's going to go give us the numbers between 1 up to and including 10. So what are we going to do? Well, we're just going to print something to the screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the print statement, or the print function, and open and close the brackets. And the value that we're going to print is just going to be the character C. And we're going to print the character C pause times. So what are we doing here? Well, we're creating a loop that goes from 1 up to, but not including 11. So all the numbers between 1 and 10, or all the integers between 1 and 10. And each time we print the character C pause times. So that means we print the character C the number of times that this number currently has. So if we write a character or a string multiplied by a number, that actually repeats the string a certain amount of times. So let's just see this in action, and then let's go through it again. So we run our code, and what we see is we've created a triangle with C's. And so how did this happen? Well, we created our for loop, and so we start at 1. Pos starts with the value 1, and what happens is we print the character C multiplied by the integer pos. So right now we print the character C multiplied by 1, so we print the character C 1 time. So we see that here. And now the print function automatically gives us a new line. And so now pos takes on the value 2, and now we print the character C multiplied by 2. So we print the character C 2 times. So if we have a string multiplied by the number, we just repeat the string that many times. So now we print it 2 times. Then pos takes on the value 3, and we print C 3 times, and then pos takes on the value 4, we print it 4 times, and 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then pos takes on the value 10, and we print C 10 times here. And then we reach the end of our loop because we all go up to but not including 11. And so we've just created this simple triangle here, which is pretty cool though. So yeah, that's kind of a really cool function that we can use just to kind of create shapes like this. So let's maybe make this a little bit more general, and let's replace this character C also by a variable. So we're going to create a variable called toPrint, and we're just going to give it a value, and let's give it the value A. And so let's replace our character or our string C here by the variable toPrint. So now what we're going to do is we're going to print our character toPrint pos number of times. So what does that mean? Well, our variable toPrint corresponds to the character A right now, and we're going to print it the pos number of times, so the number that pos has. So we're going to create now a triangle with the letter A. It's just that we have a more general kind of term here, and we can change our variable up here, and we can use this variable several times, and then we don't have to kind of put in the same character, or if we want to change it, everything gets changed automatically, but we'll get to that in a second. Right now we're just making it more general by using another variable for the character that we're going to print. But let's just run this and see what happens. So if we run it now, we see the same thing that we get above. We see a triangle made out of A's, but yeah, so what we see is we see a triangle made out of A's rather than C's. And that's because we're printing the variable or the value contained in the variable toPrint pos number of times. So toPrint can be replaced by A, and we're going to print it pos number of times. So pos starts at 1, and then we print it once, and then pos takes in the value 2, so we print it twice, and 3 and 4, and all the way down here up to 10, and then the loop is finished. And so, for example, we can just change toPrint to be B, and then we'll have a triangle made out of B's. Yeah, so here we kind of see that nice, easy functionality. And so the next thing maybe that we want to do is that we want to print backwards. So we want to kind of print a triangle like this, and now we also want to print the other side of the triangle back downwards. So how would we do that? Well, we can write another for loop. So what we can do is we can write for, and then we're just going to have another temporary variable, so we'll just use pos again. So what we're going to do is we're going to make another for loop, and then we're going to use the range function again. So for pos in range, and then open and close the brackets, so we can use the range function. And now what we want to do is we want to start at the length. So we want to start printing the final number of characters, and we want to print one less character every time. And so we want to stop at 0, so up to but not including 0. And we want to go down in steps of -1. So we have to specify this here because we're starting at a high value and we're going to a low. And so we want to go down in steps of -1. So what are we going to do is we're going to start at 10, and then we're going to go down 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so to complete our for loop, we'll just have our colon here, and then let's just print the let's just print our toPrint. And now what we want to do is we want to print it pause number of times again. So this time pause is going to take on the values starting at 10 going down to 1 rather than starting at 1 and going up to 10. So let's see this in action. So let's run our code, and we see here we start off with 1. So this is our first loop, and we just get our normal triangle up to here. So all of this is from the first loop. We start with pause being 1, and we print toPrint, the value contained in toPrint, pause number of times. So we start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now pause is taken on the value 10, and we've printed the value contained in the variable toPrint pause number of times, which is 10. And now this loop finishes, and now we go into this loop. And now pause starts at 10. And so we print the value contained in toPrint, which is b, pause number of times. So we print it 10 times. And then, because pause is going down by steps of -1, it's going to take on 9. So we're going to print it 9 times. So we're going to print b 9 times because b is contained in the variable toPrint. And we print this character a pause number of times. So pause is 9. And we print it 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So now we've created a kind of more complete triangle. So not just kind of cut off, but we've gone up and we've gone back down. Now, a little problem with this triangle is that we have kind of 2 peaks, or like a high point that's spread over 2 points. So how would we get rid of this? Well, let's, instead of starting at 10, let's start at 9. But let's keep it general, so instead of just putting in 9 here manually, let's put in our length -1. And so this ensures that when we change the length up here, we'll always be having this 1 peak here, and then this next value is going to take on 1 value less than the highest peak. So let's just see this in action to really understand what I mean. Well, if we run this now, then we run the first for loop, which goes all the way up to here, so 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's the first for loop here. And now we go back down, but this time we start at 9 rather than 10. So we go at length -1, which is 9, and we print the value b, which is contained in toPrint, 9 times, and then we go back down to 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And so we can change our variable again here, for example, to be d, and we can run this again, and we get a triangle made out of d's now. Or we can even change it to be the number 1, and we get a triangle made out of 1s. So the reason we get a triangle made out of 1s here is because we have the quotation marks around 1. If we didn't have, this means that it's a string, it's a word, rather than an integer. If we didn't have the quotation marks here, what would happen is we would just print the numbers, because we're multiplying 1 by the value of pause here, which in terms of numbers actually means multiplication. But in terms of words or strings, it means repeating them a certain number of times. So if we put the quotation marks around them again, we get back our pyramid, because now we're repeating this word or this string a certain number of times. Yeah, so here we've just seen how to kind of create a general shape using for loops and using characters. And we can also change the length up here, so we can change it to 12, for example. And now we can see here that our triangle is going to get longer when I run this. So it's going to get longer in height, and it's also going to get longer in width, because our for loop prints both width and height. And so they're kind of related, since we go through the loop 12 times, which means we're going to print 12 lines. We're also going to print the character up to 12 times up here.